Hey guys, so yeah, let's just get myself adjusted here. So yeah, Dizzy Arts or Desi Arts, that's Dezzi Arts, aka Michelle, today released the 13th chapter in her annual yearly series themed for the Melting May theme of the month of May called Melting Me I. That's MEI. And this 13th part is, kind of interesting because technically it kind of follows up on the last part. Now, basically, long story short, the the new character called Elizabeth, who is basically a master of disguise, has been granted, the same abilities by the elixir or whatever it is that Mii and Zahara are using that allows them to become pretty much goo girls, slime girls that can merge, fuse, melt down into puddles, have very NFSW intimacy. And Elizabeth basically, gets to experience this at first to kind of keep her, from escaping because she gets caught trying to steal it. And it's through several different scenarios that basically, and I'll provide the link in the description. You guys can catch up with the series yourself if you want to find out more. Basically, long story short, she basically, is given this to like keep her, to keep her like from escaping and all that, kind of contain her. And it's through all these different scenarios that they find out that Elizabeth is not as troublesome as she seems, that she's just doing a job, as a master of disguise, as a spy, if you will. So she's just doing her job and everything. That the Lindsay lady, who's in charge of this business called Shantae's, that's what the business is called Shantae's, I think spa and whatever. But basically, this Lindsay lady's the one that hired her to find out the secret to Zahara's, restoration soap, this elixir, this new mud bath, or whatever you want to call it, that a lot of people that even are clients of hers are raving about. So, through these shenanigans, these scenarios, they come to an understanding that Elizabeth doesn't really mean any harm, and they can also sense that Elizabeth, being a master of disguise, is kind of probably more quickly than both Zahara and Mia can even admit to, is learning kind of quickly of what these powers, temporary or not, are capable of, and she's becoming a little bit addicted, from an arousing kind of way. So what happens is she agrees to help them blackmail this Lindsay lady, kind of get her off their back so that, she doesn't bother them again or anybody else that has a similar business, like Zahara's, kind of keep her off their back and anybody else's back, from trying to butt into their business or try to take control of the business or get an unfair percentage of the business, if you will. So what happens at the end of the last chapter is Elizabeth allows Mii, because Mii is working with her to come up with a way to keep Lindsay off their back. She kind of, integrates, because Mii has developed more so with these abilities than Zahara and Elizabeth. So she's capable of doing a lot more. She's able to find out that, again, Elizabeth is not a troublemaker. She's just doing a job and everything. And she also finds out that, okay, obviously you are not going to hide anything, because, Elizabeth says, hey, you want to probe me more? You want to look into my memories, in your own unique way? Go ahead. I'm not going to hide anything. And Mii does that, and she finds out that, okay, you are telling the truth. You are telling the truth, and we can trust you. And she does this by basically molding her mouth, that being Mii, into like a straw-like contraption that sucks up Elizabeth's gooey peach form into nothing but liquid goodness that Mii keeps in sort of like a water balloon kind of shape that she turns into, and then she morphs into a vase with Elizabeth still in her gooey form floating in it, and then the vase, the opening of the vase kind of curves into a sly smile, thinking, or basically coming out and saying, that they've established trust. In other words, she's acknowledging, hey, I now trust you, I now believe you. So what does 13 leave off on? Well, they're still working on a plan, still working out a way to figure out, okay, how do we, find a device, a solution that's going to keep Lindsay off of them. And it's during this that basically, that both Mia and Elizabeth kind of have a little fun. Elizabeth is working on her laptop, looking up information that's going to be helpful to them. And she finds something that she wants to show Mia. So Mia decides to have a little fun because, again, she's done it the longest and all that. She's kind of had a mastery of it. And also she likes the opportunity to kind of get intimate with anybody she feels she can trust and befriend and kind of have some eroticness of the NFSW kind along with Zahara probably later on down the line. So basically, she decides to, melt down and shapeshift herself into like a slithery snake-like, shape that goes across, I'm assuming the couch, the kind of on a couch or a love seat or something like that, slithers across it and basically slithers onto Elizabeth. And she basically decides to enter Elizabeth in the upper, and I say it with all due respect, no offense, the upper bosom region, if you know what I mean, to where the two, I guess you could say, pinpoints, I'm just going to say it that way, pinpoints of the bosoms mold into basically eyes. Basically, they mold into Mia's eyes, and thus Mia, basically, to see what's going on, becomes the upper bosom of Elizabeth. She basically becomes Mia the bosom, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, she sees what Elizabeth is doing, and basically, Elizabeth allows her to take a bit of control, as well. Because, like I said, Mia has, developed and evolved a lot more with the powers, that she's able to kind of be like, okay, let me connect myself as a tenderol or something like that, and I can control certain parts of other people. And she's able to do this with Elizabeth because, Elizabeth shows her what she's looking at, and then Mia decides to take control of Elizabeth's arms to kind of kind of come up with a solution or some kind of ideas and all that. And Elizabeth gets curious because this is like one of the first times they've kind of fused together or merged together, where basically, Mia, like I said, is, kind of residing temporarily in the bosom region of Elizabeth. And Elizabeth is curious about this, asking her if this is how Mia and Zahara feel and everything when they do it. And Mia basically lets her know that, yeah, it is. And this is why she's, with, Zahara. I mean, she even acknowledges, because Elizabeth does pick up on it, that Zahara means a lot to Mia. And then, basically they just started, apparently in the story, even though the story's been going on annually for about 3 years, she admits in the continuity of the story that they've only known each other for several months, and they pretty much found a lot in common. And now, especially with the elixir and all that, they can do, they can have a lot more intimacy and fun, in many, many ways. And being Mara which is basically a combination of Mia's name and Zahara's name, is one way for them to get intimately close, if you know what I mean. So curiosity piques her, and she's like, oh, well, can we try that? Can we try to do that too? And Mia's, all one for not, backing down from an opportunity, says, well, all you have to do is melt, and then I'll follow through. But you got to let me have control. In other words, she's saying, yeah, we could do it, but you got to let me have control, because even though she does feel like they've established trust, or believe and sees that they've established trust at the end of the last part or chapter, Elizabeth is still kind of new, so she wants her to basically say, hey, we'll do it, but I'm the experienced one. Let me have control. I know what to do. So what happens is Elizabeth melts down, and Mei follows her afterwards, and it's kind of described like there's a skeleton, if you will, that remains after Elizabeth melts down into goo, at the buttocks region of Mei, and I don't know if that means all that was left is a skeleton and all that. I don't know what that meant, but anyway, Mei then melts down and joins her, and just like with Zahara, they start blending the colors of olive and peach together into a new color and everything. And then the end result is they start merging together. In other words, Mei is helping, Elizabeth, kind of mold together, kind of bring the fusion together, if you will. And by doing so, they start creating a new entity, a new body, which of course they have to get off the bed to finish, because when they get off the bed, apparently according to the way it's described, basically the legs, their feet are like elephant feet and legs. So they get off the bed, and Mei basically starts, basically building up the body and everything, just like she did with her and Zahara when they first fused, and realizes that, she could, make the body proportions similar to the Mara version, Mara fusion, I should say, that they become, but instead decides, I'm going to try a little something different, and she does. And the end result is, basically a perfect blend of both her looks and traits and Elizabeth's, even to the point that just like when she first fused with Zahara, the first time she fused with her, the fusion between Mei and Elizabeth is so good that just like with Zahara, the last thing she does is blend the coloring of the hair to match into like a perfect hue of both blonde and brown, I think, or something like that. And finally, after they're done, they look in the mirror. Elizabeth exclaims that they're gorgeous and everything, but then they need to come up with a name if they're going to have this fusion, if they're going to be doing this fusion once in a while. And the name that Mei comes up with, again, just like with Zahara, is a blending of both names. Because with Mara is the fusion name of Mei and Zahara's fusion, is a blending of Mei's name and Zahara's name. So Mei decides she's going to blend both their names, hers and Elizabeth, into one. And she does this because of the fact that she did have a friend, or knows somebody as a friend, in high school called Elizabeth, ironically. So, but she always liked to be called Lizzie, or Liz, or Liza. So what she does is she blends both the Liz, or Liza, part along with her name, and she comes up with Melissa. So she basically comes up with the name Melissa, and then from here on in, for the rest of the story, Melissa is referred to only by name. I mean, you get Mei's name and Elizabeth's name, brought up too during certain moments, but mostly since they're in this fused version, they're now known as Melissa. So this way, they have an even better opportunity of getting in. Also, Mei develops a dress or creates a black outfit, turtleneck-like outfit, as well. And Elizabeth looks at this and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I know who this person is. We look exactly like her. Can we fully be her?" And Mei's like, "Well, we could try later and all that and see what happens." So what occurs is they stay in the fused form of Melissa, drive Elizabeth's car over to the business of that Lindsay lady, that Shante massage business, which is located at the top floor of a big building. Basically, it's one of those business buildings where each floor or every other floor is occupied by one business or another. and the Lindsay's business is on the top floor. So they go there and everything. They go inside to look around to basically find something that they could use to pin on Lindsay to keep her away from Zahara's business and any other business, like I mentioned earlier, that's similar that she would like to have a piece of, if not complete control. And Mia allows Elizabeth to have a little bit of control since she knows the ins and outs. And Mia is even wondering, well, couldn't we have done this at your house or something like that, make it easier? And Elizabeth has to let her know, yeah, that's the problem. We could have, but it would be a lot harder, if not impossible, to hack into the system from my house on my laptop when it's much easier to do here in person at the business. So they're getting to work and everything when suddenly they hear somebody showing up, and Lindsay's like, "Oh shoot, somebody's coming." And this shows you right here, this little scene that she wrote in here, that being Michelle, Desi Arts. This little scene here kind of shows you how far Mia's come with come with her powers, because she's able to basically blend into a painting. Because one of the things that they notice when they get into Lindsay's office, because they're able to sneak in there, is they notice a big portrait of her, a big self-portrait of her hanging on the wall. And just as they're about to get ready to work to find something, they can nail and pin on Lindsay, they hear somebody, and Mia's like, I got an idea. And what she does is she causes them to blend into the painting, basically become one with it, indistinguishable. Until basically the person, which is like an assistant, leaves. And what this assistant does is he goes into a hidden door area behind the painting and basically is grumbling like, oh, of course it couldn't wait till morning, when she could have. Basically, the guy's grumbling at the fact that the Lindsay lady wants something right now when she could have easily waited till the morning to have it given to her or come back for it herself. So basically, he's upset by having to do this, and so after he takes care of what he has to do, he shuts the door, leaves, and everything, not aware that the painting is watching him because Mia, Elizabeth, Melissa, the fused form, has blended in with it. So after he leaves and everything is back to kind of like quiet and darkness, they emerge from the painting going like, okay, now we get back to work. And then they look at the door behind the painting and they're like, okay, how do we get in here? So that's basically how the 13th part ends. The 14th part, I think it could be the conclusion. I think it will be. And I'm believing this one was actually a little longer than the other ones. So I'm assuming that the next one's going to be just as long, if not longer, because that's the final part of this year's edition of Melting May, the Melting Me Isis series for Melting May, I should say. So that's probably going to be a little longer than this one, because of course you gotta basically finish this part of the story, and then you gotta give the ladies some time to kind of bask in the in victory, bask in the afterglow, if you will, of success, and then maybe have some of that gooey, melty fun that they're known to have with each other. Towards the end of the stories, like we kind of got with last year, with part 8. I think it was part 8 of the second year, and sort of in the sneak peek for this year's as well. So, which was part 9. But basically, I think it's going to be long enough to where we're going to not only get conclusion to this, and everything, but we're also going to have some fun with all three ladies, and we might even get a 3-way fusion between the three to end it out, but we'll see. We shall see. But then again, Michelle could surprise us and give a twist. We don't know. But one thing I will say about the Melting Me series, especially this edition, and last year's, but mostly with this year, the third part, if you will, season 3. Excuse me. One thing I've noticed with our main character that is named after, Mia, is she's really coming into her own with, the elixir, with the powers. she's able to, not only come into her own, but she's been able to master these abilities and what she's capable of doing. I mean, the fact that she can actually, I mean, and this again, this is kind of funny to read about. To think that she's actually able to allow herself to be contained within, let's say, the upper bosom region of a woman, and I say that with all due respect, no offense, and then basically replace those little points, if you will, again, saying that with all due respect, no offense, the little points, if you will, with her eyes, and basically become, that person's tits for a bit. It's kind of fun to see. I mean, it's not the first time where they're able to, where her or Zahara are able to materialize or material lose, as Michelle puts it in the story, material lose a part of their facial anatomy on the upper regions of each other or somebody else. But it is the first time we see like that in perspective, where the eyes are basically on the upper bosom region, at the little tippy tips, if you know what I mean. But it's nice. But yeah, it's great to see her basically evolving with her powers here. I mean, the fact that she's able to use her powers to, with or without permission, without permission is mostly like, okay, you leave us with no choice. You're not going to tell us. We're going to do it ourselves. She's able to, read the minds and find out whether this person, and find out whether the person they're, talking with or communicating with or whatever could be trusted. So I like that. And I also like the fact that basically, again, she's able to blend in with inanimate objects and become one with them, to disguise herself and stuff like that. And I also like the fact that just with Zahara, when it comes to a fusion, she's always says, hey, let me be the one that takes the lead. I got more experience. So it's going to be fun on how much more, evolved the powers get, especially as we go into next year. That's right, next year, because there is going to be a fourth year, God willing, God willing and everything. There will be a fourth installment next year. Maybe we might get a sneak peek this, at the end of this year, just like last year. We'll see. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens going into the fourth year. Like I said, I look at next week's as being sort of a conclusion to what's going on right off the bat. And then maybe have all three ladies have some intimate fun with each other and kind of have that three-way relationship, if you will, that fans are looking forward to. But again, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But I have a feeling it's probably going to go that direction. But again, you never know. You never know. But the one thing I've liked about the series, like I said, is the development of the main character and the powers. I really like that. I really, really do like that. So can't wait to see what happens next week, in the conclusion for this year's third installment. And maybe we might get a sneak peek into next year because, Michelle said on her DeviantArt page in the comment in her status section on the front page of her DeviantArt page, she said in the status section that she already has like ideas set up for next year. So maybe we might get a sneak peek of what those ideas might be. Maybe not. We'll have to see. That's up to her. But honestly, I can't wait for the conclusion next week and to see exactly, what's going to be in store for us as subscribers and viewers and supporters going into the fourth year next year of the Melting Me Eye series. I can't wait. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below. What do you think is going to be the next step, starting next week? What do you think the conclusion will be like? Do you think it'll be like what I've mentioned? And what do you think she has in store, that being Michelle, aka Desi Arts, for next year's installment, God willing, we're still here. What do you think she has in store for next year's installment when it comes to the Melting Me Eye series? How much crazier and fun do you think it might get? Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, and until next time, guys, I will talk to you all later. God bless. Take care.